This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 9th of February 2021, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, court derails BBI. The Standard, RUTO takes on Uhuru in-house as Tuju strikes. And the Star, Uhuru strikes RUTO men in fresh purge.
Wow.
Kind of wordplay there between the Standard and the Star. I think we'll take on the Star first.
And the Standard together, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let me give a brief background and just some commentary on this. So nominated Senators Isaac Mwaura, Millicent Omanga, Victor Prengay, Falhada Dekau Eman, Naomi Jilowako, and Mary Seneta Iane were expelled by the National Management Committee, and that is Jubilee's top organ. Today also we're told that Irungu Kangata ceased to be the Senate Majority Whip and was replaced by Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi. Now, here's what I have to say. The purging of the poison in the president's party continues. And you know what poison is? A substance that is capable of causing illness or death within a living organism when it's introduced and absorbed. And you know what? This is what these 6 senators have been in the Jubilee party. Indeed, even the deputy president has been this way in the Jubilee party. And so we now await the root of the poison to be extracted. Let me break down what Uhuru has been doing over the last 2 years by way of an analogy borrowed from the 36 Stratagems for Business by Haro von Senga. Now, Uhuru is a master at deception. He is like the lord of a city who has opened its gates and created the impression that he has no means to defend himself. He's defenseless. But in actual fact, he has solid defenses which he has hidden in his bunkers, some nuclear weapons, you name it. And the opponent, in this case, William Ruto, he should have suspected an ambush and withdrawn, but he did not. He walked right into it. And at any time now, Uhuru will shut the city's gates. Ruto will be surrounded and finished. By the time Uhuru is finished with Ruto, he will be like a beautiful tower with many followers, but without any beams. It's called the hollowing out strategy. And lastly, let me address one more thing that was brought up yesterday by our colleagues. The contagion effect, and that borrows from contagion theory. And this is a theory of collective behavior which explains that the crowd can cause a hypnotic impact on individuals. Once the process of the purge of this kind gains momentum, it will slowly snowball into an impeachment of the deputy president. It will acquire a life of its own. Ruto was told many times by Professor Mutahengunyi, but he did not listen. You will not become president. You will be made president. If only he had followed through with that advice.
Oh, that is so true. Yeah. And in case you didn't know, the purge on Jubilee Party members is sending notice to William Ruto that the end is near.
Yes.
Why expel 6 nominated senators and remove the majority whip from his seat unless you are executing a scheme? The answer is very simple. This is a dry run for impeachment and the safeguarding of the Senate. As it stands, Jubilee Party suffers from bipolar disease. And in any political party, this is simply not sustainable. One, because it is counterintuitive. You can't have the hand fighting the head. But more importantly, and secondly, it's unconstitutional. Today, we're concerned with what the law has to say. Once we understand that, it will be so very clear how the president intends to chip away slowly at the deputy president's agenda, one step at a time. So step 1, according to section 14(4) of the Political Parties Act 2011, a person shall not be a member of more than one political party at the same time. Subsection 5 goes on and it says, a person who, while being a member of a political party, A, forms another political party, B, joins in the formation of another political party, C, joins another political party, D, in any way, manner, publicly advocates for the formation of a political party, or E, promotes the ideology, interests, or policies of another political party, shall, notwithstanding, be deemed to have resigned from the previous political party. I think it's clear who we're talking about here.
Yes, yes.
And so, in our opinion, these 6 nominated senators and many more Jubilee members are in breach of their party obligations. In writing that letter, Raphael Tuju was doing what is required of him. By masquerading in yellow blue band scarves, operating from Hustlers HQ, and claiming that they are prepared to quit the party, these rebels have shown their true colors.
Yes.
They are de facto members of Jubilee Party, yes, but in the eyes of the law, they have already resigned, and this justifies their removal. Remove the cancer before it spreads.
Absolutely.
But the way I see it, this was actually a test by Tanga Tanga, initiated by Deputy President William Ruto. The Deputy President threw out his sheep into the cold to see what would happen, and now they can't come back into safety. But would he dare to do the same? By publicly advocating and promoting the ideology of another party, these rebels have effectively resigned. Tuju merely just stamped their fate. Step 1, remove the cancer. Step 2, both the Constitution and the Elections Act tell us that the office of a member of the parliament becomes vacant if they have resigned or if they are deemed to have resigned from their party. What does this mean? That actions have consequences.
Definitely.
The 6 recently expelled nominated senators are no longer members of Jubilee, and so now they have lost their jobs.
Yes.
The party can now field fresh nominated senators and a new majority whip. This becomes proof of concept for step number 3. I started by asking about the importance of removing 6 nominated senators and unseating the majority whip. My answer was impeachment. If step 2 was proof that the party can take away what the party has given, then the real test will be to apply it to the rebel in chief. Uhuru Kenyatta is simply playing right out of Vladimir Putin's playbook.
Yeah.
To my friends, everything. To my enemies, the law. The deputy president tested the nerve of his party and it backfired. Now we wait to see him cook, step by step.
I love it. And I do say that all roads lead to an impeachment and to by-elections. Those members who are sitting members and who are vied under a ticket of Jubilee and who are no longer members of Jubilee should know that the senator, the speaker will say that their seats are vacant, and IEBC will hold by-elections.
Definitely.
What's the worst that could happen? You could win your seats, but then again, Jubilee could win more seats with people who are loyal to the party.
It's only February and there's so much action happening.
I know. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, unthoughtful or just plain lazy? Standard and the Star.
It's weird.
I really like the Star.
I prefer the Star as well. I feel like the Standard and the Star swapped roles today with wordiness.
They really did. So I'm going to toss the Standard. And before we continue, I'd like to make a comment on the Daily Nation. Court derails BBI. I want to make a comment on the judiciary. In the past, the judiciary has forgotten its role as a house of neutral justice and has acted as a clearinghouse for political interests. And as we head into another political season, the judiciary has begun the dangerous trend of political rulings that led us to the 2017 nullification. And the Daily Nation has reported that the High Court has stopped IEBC from subjecting the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, or the BBI Bill, to a referendum until petitions against the proposed changes are determined. So the bill in question is currently under consideration by county assemblies, but the judges have warned these county assemblies that their decisions with regard to the approval of the bill can be declared invalid upon the hearing of the full case. To the county assemblies, the judges also said that although their order is not directed to them as legislative bodies, they should be aware that, and that this was the arrogant conclusion, that the court cannot be barred from interrogating the constitutionality of the entire BBI process. In short, the court said that it has the power to substitute its own will for that of the people.
It's okay, let them continue. Let them continue.
It's true. So when the judiciary is no longer bound by the law but falls prey to the seduction of absolute powers, our courts will be full of decisions that are based on untethered political reasoning. Judges will read between lines that do not exist to make judgments that cannot be enforced. And this is a sorry state of affairs.
Yes.
But because I am an officer of the court, I would like to remind the judiciary of its true position.
Tell them.
But I will not use my own words. I'll use the words of a founding father of the American Constitution, Alexander Hamilton.
My favorite.
As written in the Federalist Paper number 78. So according to Alexander Hamilton, the judiciary is the weakest and least dangerous of the three great branches of government. It poses no real threat to anyone because it has no influence over either sword or purse. It can have no active resolution whatever. He continues to say that the judiciary has neither force nor will. All it has is but merely judgment. So ultimately, dear judges, you must depend on the executive arm for your mere judgments. My advice to you is to walk humbly.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And you know, we give the judiciary respect. We listen to their decisions. But if they begin to deviate from proper judicial reasoning, if they begin to plunge into political thinking and you know, decision making, then they lose respect in our eyes.
And they can't execute.
Yeah,
And
as
they're
people in the public.
untethered.
Oh,
So-
Maraga is somewhere rolling at the words you've just said, Miss Kay.
Let him roll. They're not mine. They're Alexander Hamilton's. So between the Daily Nation and the Star, I'd say we toss the Daily Nation.
Toss that one. Give
And
it to the Star.
Yeah, it's true. I give it to the Star. The Star
Yes.
gives us our winning headlines. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a three-part criteria that we use to break down the cartoons for you. We ask ourselves, are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and effective, or just plain lazy? I'll begin with a description of the Star. Here we have a
Yes.
caricature of Deputy President William Ruto, and he's in a fight against a caricature of our President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. They're hiding behind Parliament buildings. I think this is, and he says, "Impeach me, I dare you." It could have been more creative. Toss it.
Yeah, I think it's so boring, honestly.
Toss
Yeah,
that
go on.
one. Shall we look at the standard?
Yes,
Definitely.
Yes, and see here we have a caricature of Ruto being squeezed by the hands of the Jubilee Party logo, and Ruto, Arab Singh, is screaming for help. You know, and look at his face. He
Yeah.
is literally just
His eyes are
eyes-
gouged out.
gasping for breath. Help! And the little character out there saying, the question is, how did he get himself up there? This is such a brilliant cartoon.
Yeah.
You know, this is a man who had half incumbency. This is a man who just had to sit, wait it out to become president.
He would be
But
made
he's
president.
just messed it all up.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
that's
he's-
so true.
Yeah.
It should have never happened. He actually had an easy path to
The presidency
Yeah, to
was
the
his
presidency.
to lose,
Yeah.
and he lost it.
precisely.
respect and take your
So I
away.
think this is a really powerful cartoon, especially coming from Gado. It's a
I
good
say
one.
we put it in the parking
Put
bay
the
and look
parking
at
bay.
what's in the nation.
In the Daily Nation, we have a baby crib, and in the crib is Mudavadi as a baby, and I think he has some diapers on. We have a caricature of President Uhuru Kenyatta serving him some milk, and Atwoli who's playing with a little rattle. And the caption there from Mudavadi is saying, "I am my own man." And I think the context here was Atwoli was trying to appeal to the Luya community to allow him to negotiate with other communities before I think he declares himself as, you know, that he wants to run for president. Yeah, is he his own man? I don't know.
He is his own man.
But I think he needs to be lifted up by others in order to be taken seriously. But anyway, I do agree with you, JM, that the Standard has a far better cartoon.
Yeah.
And we toss the Daily Nation.
Yes.
And the Standard gives us our winning cartoon. Now on to our final thought. But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the like button.
And now our final thought. This week we bring you some Valentine's related final thoughts. We're going to be looking into the science of love, the psychology of love, the mathematics, the game theory behind love. And today we start with a book entitled The All or Nothing Marriage: How the Best Marriages Work, written by Eli J. Finkel. So I think part of the book starts with, are marriages better or worse than they used to be? And so he says that the question is usually answered by looking at one of two things. So according to the marital decline camp, marriage has weakened. Divorce rates are higher and they reflect a lack of commitment and, as some people would say, a decline of moral character that has affected not only adults but children and society in general. But then on the other hand, you have the marital resilience camp, that though marriage has experienced some disruptive changes like those higher divorce rates, but some of those developments, some people argue, are a reflection that the institution has evolved, that you have to end up respecting individual autonomy, but even for women, that it's a sign that you enter marriage knowing that that's what you want to do, not that you have to do it.
Yeah.
And so Finkel is a psychological researcher who studies human relationships. And in this book, he decides to offer a third view, opposition to those two. So he examined literature on marriage, and not just like psychological studies, but work from sociologists, economics, and even historians. And so the most striking thing he says he learned as he looked into these things was that marriage hasn't become worse or better, it's actually become a combination of both. And he says that the average marriage today is weaker than the average marriage of yesteryear. But in terms of it, you have more satisfaction despite having a higher divorce rate. So he says that the marriages of today are much stronger. He says, for example, yes, in the US you may see a consistent divorce rate of about 45%. So we're saying almost 50% of marriages are failing, and that's happened consistently for the past 40 years. But at the same time, research from the University of Missouri found that marital quality predicts better personal well-being, which pretty much means that happier marriages make happier people. And so this analysis revealed that this effect has become stronger over time, that the gap between the benefits of marriage and the mediocre effect of a bad marriage, they've increased and they have become polarized. But that's his central claim, that because we have this polarization, people have elevated their expectations of what marriage should be, and that has in turn created a higher marital quality. And he says, but that only happens if people are willing to invest a great deal of time into marriage. Only if I'm ready to do it will I enter into that institution of marriage. If they're not likely to do so, they know that their marriage will fail. And so that's where the title of the book comes from, All or Nothing Marriage. We end up saying, I'm either going to do it all and I'm going to do it well, or I'm just not going to do it at all. And so I guess the question is, how has this happened? Is it reflective of Kenya? And what does it mean for the future of marriage? And I think Ms. Kay has some answers for that.
I'll try and give you some answers for that. For me, the thing that struck me is what he gave as the history of marriage. So he says that through American history, Americans have gone through three distinct models of marriage. The first is the institutional marriage, the second is the companionate marriage, and the third is the self-expressive marriage. So these models have been chronicled by scholars such as a sociologist called Andrew Sherlin and a historian called Stephanie Kuntz. And they say that in the era of the institutional marriage, this was from the founding of the American nation to around 1850, the households were pioneers and farmers. That meant that the main requirements for the American family was food, shelter, and protection from violence. So of course they'd be pleased if they found some sort of emotional connection with their partner, but for the most part what they needed was an extra set of hands.
Do you have a house?
Yes, do you have a house and do you have hands? Can you work, fight, and feed our family? In the end, they moved on to, in the 1850s to about 1965, they moved into the era of the companionate marriage. And in this era, America centered around intimate needs such as love, to be loved, and fulfillment in the bedroom. And this era overlapped with a shift from a rural agrarian society into a more urban society, as we know America in that era. And what happened is the men went out to work, the women stayed home, took care of the children and the household, and the men and women occupied different social spheres. And the nation became wealthier, its institutions became stronger, and because of that, they were able to look for more luxury even within their marriages. So instead of needing you for shelter, I now need you for love and companionship. Around 1965 to date, they moved into what now they call the era of the self-expressive marriage. Now we already have food, we have shelter, we have some love. So what do we need in marriage? We need self-discovery, self-esteem, personal growth. This means that marriage stopped being an essential institution for survival and it became an elective institution as a means of achieving personal fulfillment. Now for Finkel, he noticed something very interesting, that this history chronology of marriage mirrored Abraham Maslow's needs, the hierarchy of needs as we know it. In the beginning, the lowest level, you have physiological needs such as food, drink, next you move to safety, then you move to love and belonging, then self-esteem, and finally self-actualization. And that's how he felt that those needs had gone through. Once a basic need was met, we moved on to the next one. Once we met our need for food, he gives an example of food. So once the need for food is wholly met, then the person can focus on the next need above it, safety. I can now eat, now I need protection. I have protection, now I need love. I have love, I need self-esteem. I have self-esteem, I get actualization.
Yeah.
So this got me thinking about marriage in Kenya and my own marriage. Where are we in our marriage hierarchy of needs? Do we marry for food and safety, for belonging and love, or for self-actualization?
Yeah.
Or maybe do we marry for all of the above, depending on where you are physiologically, socially, and strategically. Statistics in Kenya, so I went into statistics to look at it a little bit, and I'll borrow from InfoTrack. They had a study where they discovered that 40% of Kenyans were happily married. 29% of Kenyans admitted that their marriages were crumbling, and 31% said they couldn't say whether their marriage was happy or unhappy. In short, they were confused. And of those marriages that ended in divorce or separation, which just like America, our trajectory of divorce has been increasing ever more slightly over the years, 64% walked out because of money problems at the very lowest level.
So it's money.
56% walked out for infidelity, so they needed some sort of love.
Did you say 56
Yes,
infidelity?
56% walked out because of infidelity.
My Kenya.
So maybe we're still in stage 1 or 2 in the hierarchy of marriage, food and shelter, and we're transitioning maybe into stage 3, love and belonging. But there may be some people who are at self-actualization. I don't know. Why don't you guys let me know?
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Let's find out. I'll do 2 things. First, I'll speak about my own experience, having been married for 5 years now, and then I'll get into the contribution from the book. So, in my experience, there are only 2 verses from the Holy Bible that contain the secrets to a happy marriage. And this is important because oftentimes, you know, we get into a marriage and you suffer frustration for the longest time. You know, when you go to premarital counseling and you hear couples telling you for 5 years we were frustrated, we didn't understand each other. But you know what? Knowledge destroys frustration, as I like to say. So here are the biblical principles. The first, Ephesians 5:33 says, each one of you must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Gentlemen, Nairobians, Kenyans, Kenyan men, a woman needs love like a human being needs oxygen. That is how they were wired. And similarly, the irreducible minimum for a man is respect. The second secret to a happy marriage, I hope you're taking notes, is Proverbs 24, verse 3-4. And I swear by this verse, these 2 verses. And the verse says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. So here, basically, the secret to this long and happy marriage, at the core of it all, is these 3 things. Knowledge, which is that which you, you and your spouse, you ought to possess the correct information about your relationship, how to get along with one another, what you want your vision for life to be. Understanding, which is comprehension, and that's the reason, so once you've possessed the information, you've got to sit down and reason through it together, and you've got to reason in the context of your shared vision for your own lives as a couple. And then finally, wisdom, which is the application of that understanding. So it's not so much love, but when you get down to the day-to-day, it's that knowledge and the comprehension and the application of it as wisdom. And now finally onto the lesson by Eli Finkel. And he says marriage is about time and attention. And indeed it is very much about that. And he asks in this book, how big of a priority is your relationship for you? If you're not sure, try to count the days in the past few weeks on which you and your partner spent more than a couple of hours together. And if these times are few and far between, then you may need to give your relationship a bit more room in your life. And he quotes a few studies, and he says that these show that making enough time for a marriage is key to making your relationship a happy and a prosperous one. He quotes the 2016 Nielsen report. This is an American-based report, which measures the viewing habits of Americans. And that report found that the average person spent around 5 hours per day watching television.
Wow.
Then he added another 1 hour and 30 minutes to bring the total time to 6.5 hours. The 1 hour 30 minutes was for Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. And that is precious time that you should be spending with your spouse. And I believe that applies to us as Kenyans to an extent. The second study that he quotes is from a sociologist, P.W. Kingston, from the year 1978. And he did a study that found that the more time partners spent engaging with one another, the happier they were. Another from 1988 confirmed that married couples who engage in the same leisure activities have a much lower divorce rate.
Those are such easy and practical things to apply.
Yeah.
Spend more time together.
Spend more time together, make it structured, do leisurely activities.
Make it enjoyable.
And then just, refer to those Bible verses and you're good.
Understanding.
Well,
I do love it.
But that respect part, is respect not reciprocal? Is it not back and?
I mean, if you love somebody, you definitely, if you love something,
respect
you
them
will
back.
respect them, right?
Respect them back.
But a man, it's not really the love. It's
the respect.
It's the respect. It's not that you remember my birthday. I don't really care about that. It's not that you take me out for Valentine's. It's just that you respect me. You consult me. What do you want for dinner?
We need to do a book this week on single people then.
It's Valentine's week and you chose the books. Today we had a winning headline from The Star and a winning cartoon from Gado of The Standard. Don't forget to find us on your TV screens. We are on Pan, Free to Air, GoTV and Star Times. Yay, I got it right. Can't even believe it. I'll end with a quote by a lady called Simone Signoret. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. And she says, "Chains do not hold a marriage together. It is threads. Hundreds of tiny threads which sew people together through the years." And that's on the effectiveness and the need of time and effort in marriage. Have a great day.